Hey everybody, Jillian here for Illustrated Faith, and today I'm going to be doing a traveler's notebook type process video. Well, I'm actually going to be creating in my traveler's notebook, but I want to kind of document what I've taken away from this week learning about joy. I have some sermon notes that I want to include, and then some just like big ideas that I took away from the Unprecedented Advent devotional cards that Taylor did for Illustrated Faith, talking about joy. So I pulled some things that I think I might want to go ahead and use. I am going to pull my notebook out here so we can get started. I haven't done one of these videos in a while, and when I finished this project, I was like, man, I really forget how much I miss making these. They're messy and imperfect, and they're really fun to do, and they afford me a lot of space to get a lot of notes down, which is one of my favorites. So I'm going to go ahead and start by opening some of the glassine bags from the last few days. I don't think I opened anything past the 19th, so there are no spoilers in here again. I haven't had much time to journal this past week, so a lot of these have been unopened. So it's kind of fun to go through them all at once and see what was in there. I also have Taylor's Print and Pray Unprecedented Advent digital ephemera, and if you guys are working through Brianna's or Taylor's Advent devotional, I highly recommend picking up the coordinating digitals. That way you have items in your stash that are going to coordinate with the devotional, and they're just going to work so perfectly. I really like having these elements this year from Taylor so that, I don't have to spend too much time thinking about, what am I going to use? So I wanted to use the Oh Holy Night stencil that's in the Illustrated Faith shop, and stencils and I have this kind of like love-hate relationship. I haven't found a way to use a stencil quickly that works for me. Case in point, this didn't turn out. So what I wanted to do was just get some color down through the stencil, and I didn't want to get like super messy. And as you can see here, I didn't get a great impression. But this is just the background for my page, the first layer, and there are going to be a bunch of elements layered on top. So I'm not too worried about it. A little disappointed, but not worried about it. I tried it again, figured, hey, maybe it'll work the second time. It worked a little bit better, and then I was like, okay, well, let's try it one more time. I like to do things in threes, so I'll put it down on the bottom left. Nope, so I'm 1 for 3 here, and then I realized I should just stop and move on to the next part. I wanted to feature the date prominently on my spread, so I'm using the Big Story number stamps. I'm rubbing them on my hand because they're brand new, and I find that ink and paint and things stick to them much easier when they have some kind of like dirt or oil from the skin on there. I don't know what's weird, but it works. So I'm using this Target Handmade Modern acrylic paint, which is kind of like dried out a little bit, and painting that onto the numbers, stamping that down on some scrap cardstock, and then I'll go ahead and fussy cut those out. So like I mentioned, I'm journaling some sermon notes here from December 13th, and that's why I'm featuring this date on here. Alright, so I've got my numbers cut out, my paint is dry, and I'm going to go ahead and figure out where I want the largest elements that I know I want to use to live on the page. I didn't have a like a hash mark, not a hash mark, a diagonal line for the date, so I just painted one with my paintbrush and then fussy cut that out, and it kind of works. So I'm just looking at Taylor's digitals here to see what I want to include. I know that I want to include this definition of the word joy and some of these angel gals from the kit too, so I'm just kind of figuring out where. At one time I had likened figuring out where things go on a traveler's notebook spread to a snack plate. So I don't know if you've ever made a snack plate, but what I like to do is anchor the board or the plate with like 2 or 3 large things, and then I fill in the space around there. And so that's what I'm doing here. Then I realized, hey, I want a little bit more on this spread, so I went back through some of the leftover bits from the kit that I had from like weeks past and pulled some of those things out to incorporate. And then I grabbed the washi from the kit, and I'm going to put in 3 places just some clusters of this washi tape. I typically like to have something in the middle, like in the gutter of the page, that connects both sides of the spread. So today it's going to be the washi tape. I cut up one of Kelly's Advent flashcards that are in the shop. They are available both physically and digitally, which is really cool. So I'm looking here for a question mark because I want to stamp that down onto this piece of the card that I trimmed down, and this is going to be my jumping off point. So like usual, when I journal in a notebook, I'm working, top to bottom, left to right. So I'm going to start off with some sermon notes from last Sunday. And there's like this video that plays in between our, the music and then when our pastor gets up. And the video like really stayed with me, talking about joy and, really, is joy really possible, Jesus? Instead, we'll just settle for contentedness, a life with no pain and no unhappiness. And I was like, man, is that me? So I appreciated like asking that question as I launched into the week of going through Taylor's Joy devotional. Good grief, I'm going to cry. It was just a really, really good week. And I love how God used all of the teaching that I had absorbed during this week of Advent. So I've got my date down. I'm going to go ahead and start my journaling. And then this video is really just me working my way down, like I said, top to bottom, left to right. So, I'll write a little bit and then I'll like glue down some more elements and then write some more. So it's going to be a little scattered, but hang in there. Next, I'm going to use this Joy sticker, and then I wanted to use the butterfly wings from Elaine's stamp and like put them next to the word just to highlight it and to make it look cute too. You can see I'm covering up a lot of this like teal paint that I had put through the stencil, and that is not an accident. So then here, now that I have the sticker down, I'm asking the question, what even is joy anyway? And then I have Taylor's printable there that defines that word, Simcha, joy. And in the sermon, which I'll link in the video description below, we looked at the nativity story in Luke 1, verses 26 to 55, where, the angel appears to Mary. She goes and visits Elizabeth. And we talked about how joy does not require the absence of pain. As one commentator puts it, God's favor, his blessing, is being chosen by him, and that often means at the same time a crown of joy and a cross of sorrow. I thought that dovetailed beautifully into Taylor's reading for today, day 18 of Joy. And so I'm going to like launch into that on the right side of this page. And I moved my little date numbers down so I could accommodate this digital sticker that says, "Count it all joy," which is from James 1, verse 2. And then I went ahead and included all of the other verses that Taylor put on the card: Romans 5, 3 and 4, 1 Peter 1, 6 and 9, Hebrews 12, 1 to 13, and how we can have unlikely joy in trials because they have the potential. It's not a certainty. It's like it requires our participation, but they have the potential to mature us in our faith. I love how Taylor says trials hold the keys to our character. I decided to add a few more of her digital elements, like this little journaling box, to kind of cover up some of that stencil mess and use that as like a little place to hold journaling. I figured it was going to be difficult to write around this circular sticker, so I went ahead and added some little greenery from the Advent kit. And then I looked back a couple days this week and noted some additional things that I wanted to write down. For instance, Taylor says, the joy that Jesus ushers in with his kingdom is also the joy of victory and harvest, but this joy is supernatural and doesn't depend on a life of physical well-being. I think so often I put too much stock into circumstances, and so I definitely wanted to kind of go over this again and write it down. And because that part was important to me, I added another little journaling box down here at the bottom so it would kind of stand out a little more on my spread. I started off asking a question, joy, and then ended it with an exclamation, yes, joy. I'm going to top it off with a date stamp. I'm using the Studio Calico Mega Date stamp. Since I already have the date up there pretty prominently in the middle, I'm just going to stamp the month and the year. It's a little wonky, but that's all right. I'm looking to the word fetty from Taylor's digital ephemera, and I'm going to use this word rejoice just to kind of fill in some more of that space at the bottom right. And then I'm going to take this big brush pen in a color that kind of coordinates with the yellow that's used in some of the digitals. and put some little stars or asterisks around my page just to fill in some of those white spots. And that's it. I've got some photos at the end here, some close-ups so you can see a little zoomed in what my spread looks like. And all of the items that I used are linked down in the video description below. I hope you guys have the most Merry Christmas, and I'll see you soon.